Hello, friends. I look into the campaign council list, the legal framework governing the revenue service, and the documented controversies surrounding the two other names I did mention. There is a very strong governance and conflict of interest argument here, but I would not state categorically that the president has already committed a criminal offense, unless a competent court or a relevant authority establish that. Please follow my narratives. I want to narrate this as a story. There is also one factual correction that actually makes this argument more precise. Zach Adedeji is not a minister. He is the executive chairman of the Nigerian Revenue Service, formerly FIRS. He was appointed by Tinubu and confirmed by the Senate. And the current published campaign list placed Adedeji as the number 32 as the Deputy Director of Fundraising. Ngozi Olejeme at number 37 as South Zonal Director for Election Planning, Coordinated and Mobilizations, and Betta at number 97 as the Director of Women Mobilization. That distinction matters because it allows us to make the argument on fact rather than exaggeration. Now, the core problem with Adedeji's appointments, the Nigerian Revenue Service exists to assess, collect, and account for revenue accruing to the federal government. The governing legislation describes the service as responsible for administering federal taxes and accounting for tax collected. All right? It was designed as an autonomous revenue collection body. Now, place that responsibility beside the campaign appointment, friends. The person responsible for leading Nigeria's federal tax collection machinery has simultaneously been placed in charge of fundraising for the president's re-election campaign. What God cannot do cannot exist. That is an enormous appearance of conflict of interest. There's a problem. It does not automatically prove that Adedeji has diverted 1 naira of the taxpayers' money to the campaign, but that it is not the only test of good governance. The question is, why would a government that claims to be serious about transparency and institution independence deliberately create a situation in which the country's chief tax collector is also responsible for raising money for the president's political campaign? That is the question I would put directly to the presidency. Why this is particularly troubling? Imagine you are a major corporation operating in Nigeria. I'm just painting a scenario. The NRS is responsible for collecting taxes from you. The executive chairman of that same organization is now a senior fundraiser for the president seeking another term. Even if he completely separates his official duties from the political activities, what does that look like to the taxpayer? A businessman could reasonably wonder, if I refuse to contribute to the president's campaign, could that affect how aggressively my company is pursued for taxes? Maybe it will not. But the public institution must not merely be free from improper influence. They must also be structured so that citizens have confidence that they are free from what? Improper influence. That is the essence of institutional integrity. And this is why I would not frame the issue simply as Tinubu is corrupt. I would frame it more powerfully. Why is the president creating a structure that creates an obvious conflict between the administration of compulsory taxations and partisan fundraising? That is a much more defensible question. Nigeria. The constitutional dimension, Nigerian constitution contains a code of conduct for public officers in the 5th schedule. The broader principle is that public office is a public trust and that public officers must not place themselves in position where their private interests conflict with their official responsibilities. Nigeria's anti-corruption framework also recognizes the importance of preventing conflicts of interest and abuse of public office. But there is an important legal nuance here. I have not found a source establishing that simply being named on a political campaign committee automatically violates the constitutions of the NRS Act. Therefore, I will not tell you, your audience or the entire citizens or the Nigerians that this appointment is definitely unconstitutional. I try to balance the equation when I'm doing my arguments. That would go beyond evidence. Instead, I would say this appointment raises a serious constitutional, ethical, and also conflict of interest questions that deserves legal scrutiny. That is stronger because it is difficult to displace. And then comes the question of public resources. This is where Nigerians should be especially vigilant. Okay, this is where all Nigerians should be especially vigilant. The Electoral Act regulates campaign financing and election expenditure. Section 88 and 89 address expenditure limit and related campaign finances rules, while the legal framework places restrictions around political financing and the use of public resources. So the crucial question becomes, will Adedeji raise campaign money using the private political capacity, or will the machinery, data, personnel, contact, and influence of the revenue service somehow become involved? There must be an absolute firewall. No taxpayer database, no official NRS staff, no government vehicles, no government offices, no officials working hours, no taxpayers pressure, no preferential treatment, and no suggestion that businesses should contribute because they have tax obligations. This is serious. For the chairman of tax collection in Nigeria be appointed as a deputy fundraiser for the presidential campaign. Nigeria, the more you look, the less you see. If any of those things accrued, that would move the issue from bad optics or conflict of interest towards a much serious legal and ethical questions. And that is why the presidency should voluntarily establish a clear firewall and publish the campaign finance arrangements. Now, friends, let's talk about the other two names. First, Ngozi Olejeme, the number 37 according to the published list, campaign list. Who is this lady? Dr. Ngozi Olejeme was appointed South-South Zonal Director of Election Planning, Coordination, and Mobilization. Her inclusion deserves scrutiny because of her history with the Nigerian Social Insurance Trust Fund, the NSITF. Olejeme was previously served as the NSITF chairman. She subsequently became the subject of EFCC investigation involving allegations of massive diversion of public funds. Reporting has also documented allegations involving tens of billions of naira, asset seizures, and then frozen bank accounts. And this is important. I'm painting a picture. Allegations is not convictions. We should not call Olejeme a convicted criminal unless there is a conviction establishing that. But a person facing serious unresolved allegations concerning public funds being placed in a senior role dealing with election planning and mobilization naturally raises a legitimate questions, and Nigeria deserves an answer. What message is the APC sending about standards of people entrusted with campaign machineries? This is not about permanently condemning somebody because they were investigated. If she has been cleared, the government should say so. If proceedings remain outstanding, Nigerians deserve to know. If there was a court judgment, publish it. Transparency will settle the argument. I hope you guys are following me. All right. Now let's go to Betta Edu. The number 97. This one is even more politically sensitive. Why is it politically sensitive? Why is Betta Edu? Who is she? Why is her name on the list? The published campaign list names Betta Edu as a director of women mobilization. Edu was appointed Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation by Tinubu. In January 2024, Tinubu suspended her after the emergence of a memo requesting the transfer of 585 million of Naira ministry funds to a private account. Tinubu subsequently directed the EFCC to investigate. The EFCC investigation subsequently became much broader. Now, Reuters reported in April 2024 that investigators had recovered approximately 28.88 million in connections with the wider investigations into the alleged fraudulent activities at the Ministries of Humanitarian Affairs, Poverty Alleviations. Again, we must maintain the distinctions. An investigation is not a conviction, friends. But that does not make the appointment politically irrelevant. The question is, or the question Nigeria should be asking is, why would a government that suspended a former minister over a 585 million naira controversy subsequently give her an appointment position in the president re-election campaign? Are we fighting corruption or we're encouraging corruption, emboldenment of corruptions in Nigerian governments? That is a legitimate question, and the public deserves an answer. I deserve an answer. Nigerians deserve an answer. Now, in context, let me put all the three together and you guys understand where I'm heading to. So follow my narrative, my narrations. We are going to learn together. Let's put all the three together. This is where the political argument becomes powerful. We have Zach Adedeji, the country's chief federal revenue official. Role in the campaign is a deputy director of fundraising. I want you guys to mark that. We have Ngozi Olejeme, former NSITF chairman, associated with serious historical EFCC allegations involving alleged diversion of public funds. Role in the campaign, South Director for Election, Planning, Coordination, and Mobilization. And let's come to Betta Edu. Former minister suspended over the 585 million private account transfer controversy and subsequently investigated by EFCC. Role in the campaign, Director of Women Mobilization. Okay? Are you guys following me? These appointments are not proof that any of these people are currently committing crimes. But collectively, they raise a much larger questions about standards, institutional boundaries, and political accountability. Are those money diverted while they are in office are now being used, kept somewhere, and now being used to fund the campaign? And that is why they were never prosecuted. And this is where your rebuke should hit hard. This is where Nigerian rebuke should hit hard. Let me personalize it. I would say President Tinubu cannot stimulously tell Nigerians that he is building stronger institutions while blurring the line between government institutions and his personal political campaign. Okay? All right? This Nigerian Revenue Service should belong to Nigeria, not APC. Okay? The Nigerian Revenue Service should belong to Nigeria, not the APC. Taxpayers should not feel that the person responsible for collecting their money is stimulously working to raise money for a politician. An anti-corruption investigation should not automatically become a political death sentence for anyone. But neither should a political loyalty become a rehabilitation certificate. If someone has been investigated and cleared, tell Nigerians. If someone has been convicted, explain why they are being appointed. If a case remains unresolved, explain the legal and ethical basis for appointment. That is accountability. Now, what is the bigger danger of normalizing impunity? What is the bigger danger of normalizing impunity? This is what concerns me most and concerns most Nigerians. Nigeria has suffered for decades because citizens gradually becomes accustomed to things that should not even should shock them. First, this is unusual. Then every day everybody does it. Okay? First, they'll say, oh, this is unusual. Then everybody does it. Then that is politics. That is not nation building. That is not democracy. That is not leadership. It is impunity. Eventually, there is nothing wrong with it. It starts with, first, that is unusual. Then everybody does it. Then that is politics. Then eventually, there is nothing wrong with it. That is how institutions die gradually. The question isn't merely whether Zach Adedeji can personally separate his campaign role from his revenue role. Of course, he can claim that he will. The question is whether the institution should have been placed in that position in the first place. That is the question Nigerians should ask. The question is whether the institution should have ever been placed in the position in the first place. Nigerians deserve accountability from its leadership. There is nobody that is being covered under the law or protected under the law. Okay? Accountability matters. A leadership trust matters. When a president becomes the president of a nation, accountability to the nation matters. I rest my case.